Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic.
It was a cloudless night in Konoha, the village hidden between the leaves. Everywhere you looked, you could see destruction. A few hours ago, the village was attacked by a monstrous entity called a Biju. This Biju happened to be the strongest one, and went by the title Kyuubi no Yoko, nine-tailed fox. The stench of death rested heavily in the air around the ninja village and its inhabitants who were busy counting the dead. The beast was defeated by the one ninja the village called Yondaime Hokage, fourth fire shadow, Minato Namikaze, by sealing it inside a blonde newborn baby. The preliminary death count had just came and delivered to the council presided by the Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, third fire shadow. The council was assembled to determine the newborn's fate. Burn him. Burn the demon. He injured my husband and killed so many others, screamed one white-haired but young woman. Counselor Haruno, for the 15th and final time, we are not gathered here to decide if to execute the boy, but to find a good solution about his placement. If you can't get this through your thick head, then stay silent, leave or be executed. This is your last warning. And with that, the aged Hokage released a lot of killer intent, almost making the woman faint. But she wanted to protest until two Anbu, one with a Ryu dragon shaped and one Inu dog shaped masks, appeared from the background shadows and moved their blades near the neck a hair's width from the skin. As you can see, my word will be respected in these proceedings. Besides, I can give you 3 good reasons to ignore your requests. One is that Minato desired for this child to be seen as a hero and jailer of the Kyuubi and not as the demon incarnate. You disrespect his sacrifice to this village and to you indirectly by trying to have this boy killed. 2 would be the fact that the civilian council has no power over military matters such as execution. And his words were interrupted when an aged but not too old man with white long hair, red paint marks on his face and a huge scroll on his back split the doors open and stomped inside. Jiraiya, what is the meaning of this? Asked Hiruzen. I came to give you an even better reason, number 3. He then turned to the council. Because if anything happens to this boy, consider me and my spy network an enemy of the leaf. He proclaimed. The room was in an uproar. Why would one of the Sannin declare war on the village if something should happen to some random brat? Jiraiya-sama, why would you go so far to protect this boy from harm? He is nothing but a monster. A random civilian council member protested until he was silenced by a 2 kunai grazing each side of his head and a third near his jewels. I will not let you accuse this boy unjustly like that, growled Jiraiya, unless you say that you are a seal master greater than Minato or myself. I examined the seal and it is flawless, unless you decide to insult my students, your Yondaime Hokage, and the world's greatest Fuin expert's memory and the Shinigami, a freaking god. You will all shut up and be quiet unless you have a good idea about this child's care or are spoken to, yelled Jiraiya with loads of killer intent, knocking out 2 civilian members. The Sandaime coughed to clear his throat. Now that discussion is over, let us get back to the matter at hand. This boy needs a family to care for him. Will anyone here take the boy to be raised? Everybody turned their stare from the aged Hokage, until one old man who looked more like a mummy than human with his bandages covering part of his face, one eye and having one other arm wrapped around his waist in bandages, raised his hand. No, Danzo, I will not let you have the hero of our village to turn him into a mindless killer. He is destined for greatness and will not become a pawn in your schemes. Sandaime stared at the old war hawk when this one lowered his hand and clicked his tongue. He then looked at the other members of the Konoha Council and was utterly disappointed. Is this the behavior befitting of the villagers the fourth gave his life for? I am too old and must still look after this village, and my wife is dead, but my heart weeps that I could not take him in. Jiraiya must maintain his spy network as this village's one and only spy master. Now tell me, what is your excuse? The old fire shadow growled at the people in front of him. Hyuga Hiyashi was the first to answer. I understand Lord Hokage, as I too would love to take the boy that my closest friend Minato proclaimed a hero, but in my household he would be tortured by his peers and he himself would not understand why, not only because of the Biju but also because of our eyes. I honestly apologize to both you and Minato. The head Hyuga then sat down after bowing deeply. Understandable, as with all clans who poses Kekkei Genkai or secret jutsu, said Hiruzen turning towards the civilian part. Do I even need to ask? The counselors still looked away and were silent. Well, Sarutobi screamed. They all shook their heads. The Hokage let out a sigh. Then I have no choice. The boy shall be placed under the supervision of, Danzo was flashing his, I win. Grin when Hiruzen finished, the orphanage. The war hawk jumped on his feet to say, Hokage-sama, you can't be serious. He must be properly trained to control the beast within him. The boy shall be trained, Danzo. The mummy's eye widened, if he chooses to join the academy at the right age. I will not argue this further with you. Stand down or I will charge you with treason and insubordination. The old man was on a roll with Danzo, who sat down at the sound of that warning. I declare this meeting and its discussions, highest S-class secret. You will not be allowed to talk about it under penalty of death. Also, this category of secret is that no one will ever be allowed to speak about the contents of the boy's seal except myself and the boy himself. This meeting is adjourned, declared the Hokage. Inu. Yes, sir. The Ambu with a dog mask appeared in front of him. Take him to the orphanage and sign him under the name of Naruto Uzumaki. Hi. The Anbu took the boy and disappeared. Almost 4.5 years later, a small blonde child was running away from an angry mob, dashing under fences and jumping wherever he could. However, he was still a toddler running from a mob led by shinobi. The child had gotten away from the civilians, but one of the said shinobi, a chunin, shunshined in front of the boy kunai at the ready. The boy pleaded with his attacker to leave him alone. Please don't hurt me. I didn't do anything. Don't try to trick me, demon. You will pay for the lives you have taken. The man fired a kunai just when two swords slashed his neck and abdomen horizontally. But it was too late, as the kunai that the chunin fired sailed through the air and impaled itself into Naruto's chest, missing his heart by 1/1000 of an inch and causing heavy damage to his lungs and arteries. Shit! Exclaimed the dog-masked Anbu. Ryu, we got to take him to the hospital. These wounds are bad, he ordered. Hi. The dragon accepted it and they both vanished, taking to the roof. On his way there, Naruto drifted to his subconscious. He woke up in a sewer completely healed and wondering where he was. He then heard a low growl coming from a corridor he was in. Deciding to follow his instincts, he let himself find the voice by following the red and blue pipes that connected into what seemed like white boxes before splitting again into more red and blue pipes. He followed the biggest ones until he reached a massive chamber with golden iron bars that had a strange character written in their middle. Oh, how Naruto wished he could read. Come closer. The darkness behind the bars ordered the boy in a low and soft growling type of voice. He did so until he was a few feet from the bars. Then out of the darkness 2 red eyes appeared that looked like they will burn into your soul. Who are you? Asked Naruto as if he was mesmerized by the strong eyes. To you or me, those eyes would have spelled evil right away, but the boy was no stranger to hiding your feelings even at such a tender age. He saw something else in them, sadness and regret. All of a sudden a figure stepped out into the light that looked like a gigantic fox. Take a guess. It answered and flashed his tails in the air, 9 in number. The boy's eyes widened and he lost a shade of color in his face. Kyuubi no Yoko. That's right, Kit. The fox smirked. Where are we? And why are you here? The Yondaime Hokage killed you. The boy calmed down and asked. We are inside you, Kit, in a place called your mindscape. It is a place in your mind where we can meet and talk. As for your second question, think about it. I am an eternal Biju with more chakra than your village's citizens combined, shinobi included, even Hokage. How could one ninja kill me? The fox answered Naruto with boredom written on his face. Naruto was shocked by the truth of his situation. He didn't kill you. He put you inside me. The correct term is sealed, and yes, he sealed me inside you, well, half of me anyway. He took away my yin or spiritual chakra to keep my will from influencing you. The Kyuubi was a little angry at the Hokage's transgression but also carried respect into his eyes at the recollection of the memory. Not that it would do much good. I know how his people treat you, Kit. Release me and let's have our revenge. Snickered Kyuubi. No, I don't want revenge. I only wanted to know why they treat me with fear and hatred. I don't want to destroy the village. How could I be Hokage without Konoha? Smiled the blonde, but his expression changed immediately to an emotionless one. Why? Naruto asked, looking at the huge fox but not at his face. The beast raised an eyebrow. Why did you attack Konoha years ago? What did the village do to you? The boy completed his question, staring directly into his prisoner's sight. Well, I was bored and wanted to have some fun. The fox grinned at Naruto. There was a moment of silence from the kid as he stared at the shallow water at his feet with his bangs shadowing the top part of his face. Liar. Naruto whispered. What? The Biju asked. Naruto jerked his face up with pain in his sky blue eyes. I said you are a liar. Yelled the boy. Don't lie to me. I can see the regret in your eyes when you think about that day. And I saw the pain when you lied. The blonde started sobbing with half-closed eyes, and I can also see that you are not evil at all, just. The fox dropped his smile and launched a claw at the child through the bars that stopped near his face. Why did you stop your claw? You had enough space, and if I die in here you will have my body and be free. Naruto stopped sobbing and was looking with compassion at the Kyuubi. This shocked the fox bad as he started stuttering. I don't see. You are not evil, you are just in pain. Why? The boy was concerned for his prisoner. Now the silence came from the fox. Why do you care, brat? Asked the fox, trying to hide his own insecurity. Because I know how bad it hurts when nobody cares if you are hurting. Nobody deserves that kind of treatment, Biju or human, nobody does. Naruto answered sincerely. The Biju was thinking something deep as the top part of his face was shadowed and his eyes were closed. You remind me of somebody I knew a long time ago, Kit. He was also a kind busybody who could read the pain in one's soul. If you don't mind me asking, who? The kid tilted his head slightly with a cute and curious look. The original shinobi, and my father. The sage of six paths. The Biju answered as a tear fell down his cheeks. He was also a person who cared for the sufferings of others selflessly. He created jutsus to help the suffering and the weak, and as a result of his battle with my mother, he created me and my 8 other brothers. Naruto listened to the fox in wonder. My mother was a titanic demon called the Kyuubi, 10 tails. It rampaged across the countryside, leaving destruction in its wake and causing pain and suffering to all that it came across. The old man could not stand this and battled the monster until it appeared as if it was winning. With a flash of genius, the man created a seal and became the first Jinchuriki, human sacrifice, or a human with a Biju sealed inside of him, but it was powerful, and so near his death he used an incredible technique and split its chakra into 9 others, one of which created me. The blonde was sitting lotus style on the wet floor of the sewer prison and was absorbing the knowledge of this story. Before he passed on, he told us that we were born out of the Kyuubi's soul, but we could follow the right path. Kyuubi felt sorrow drown him. I'm sorry, old man. I let you down. He cried, looking to the ceiling. No, you did not, yelled Naruto. Wake up. WHO told you that. WHO made you think like that. Naruto screamed as loud as his lungs could let him. People have used us as tools of war for a long time, Kit. You weren't my first host. I just let their anger and greed leach into me and lost my way into darkness. I failed. The fox was looking depressed. So, when you hit the bottom, there is nothing to do but climb up. Snap out of it, damn it. The past is history. You have a whole future to make amends and change. If you admit defeat so easily, I will personally kick your back onto the right path. You have my word. And I never go back on my word, for that is my ninja way. The boy yelled at the fox with diamond hard resolve. Kyuubi looked at him in wonder and shock. Flashback. An elderly man stood in front of a young Kyuubi and his other tailed brothers. He was the sage of 6 paths, founder of the ninja world. The kind man was giving them his final words, and between them was the line. And unlike when you were within me, you will be led down the right path. Flashback end. Kurama. He whispered. What? The blonde asked. My name is Kurama. And with that he gently stretched a claw through the bars. Hee hee. It's nice to meet you, Kurama ni-san. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the future greatest Hokage. The kid grinned and touched the claw. Both he and Kurama smiled. Naruto woke up in the hospital ward with his chest bandaged and a little painful, but not too bad. He remembered his talk with Kurama ni and how he told him that he will protect him the best he could, and if he ever wanted help, he would gladly give it. He also showed Naruto how to access his chakra. That's when they both got a surprise. Flashback. Okay kid, close your eyes and look deep inside of you. You should feel it as pure power coursing through you. Found it, answered the blonde. Grab it and don't let it slip. Pull it up as you return from inside your mind. Alright, here I go. And after 2 seconds Naruto opened his eyes and found himself swirling with bluish chakra. Great job kid. Wah. The fox was surprised when the child's blue chakra started shining white as all the squares on the walls of the mindscape started glowing in the same way. What's going on? Naruto got a little nervous at his ni-san's reaction. Well, I'll be. Looks like you got Ranpu, light chakra capabilities kid. Congrats. I haven't seen that in nearly 400 years. Strange though, it usually appears in people exposed to poisons or diseases as it has strong purification abilities, but my chakra should have kept you safe from th. Of course, my chakra. Kurama was acting strange while explaining the strange light to Naruto. What's wrong? Is it bad? The kid was getting worried. No kid. It's just that the Ranpu chakra in your body manifested as a result of this seal leaking my chakra into your system. If taken without my approval, it is highly corrosive and dangerous for any human, but because it was a small amount over time, your body adapted to turning your yin chakra into Ranpu element as a safeguard against my yang chakra that got transferred to you without my help. Cool. So what can it do? The child was getting excited. Like I said, it has powerful purification abilities in the form of energetic radiation. You can heal any disease and neutralize any poison in your own body as well as other people. Besides that, it gives you control of any form of light or radiation. Plus it can energize your whole body or specific body parts to work better. I think I even remember a few jutsu using light element, and you don't have to do training to use them since your body can produce it naturally instead of you willing your chakra to change into it like normal elemental jutsu. Try directing some chakra to your eyes and after that send some to your brain. Kurama explained. Naruto struggled with it at first but then got the part with the eyes. When he opened them he was shocked as he could see his ni-san's chakra pathways as clear as day, and also his outline seemed filled with spots in covering the whole spectrum from red to blue. He could see all details in a way that would make a Hyuga green with envy, as well as a whole lot of things and energies that he didn't see or notice before. That, Naruto, is called the Shinsugen no Jutsu, Eyes of Truth technique. It lets you see in the dark, see chakra and chakra pathways. Also thermal vision, and judging by your expression, that is what you are seeing now in me. You see hotter spots from orange, red or white for the hottest, and blue, violet or black for colder. Also you can see X-rays and gamma rays, and that lets you see through walls. You can also see in a perfect sphere around yourself and amplify natural light to zoom to any distance proportional to your chakra quantity and control. It also makes you very resistant to genjutsu or any kind of illusions. It is believed that this was what caused the birth of the Byakugan, though nobody knows for sure. Naruto got that part down and got to sending Ranpu chakra to his brain. Everything slowed down, even him. This worried him a little and caused him to release the technique. I see that you tried the Sojin Seishin no Jutsu, mind purification technique. It accelerates your thoughts as well as clearing your mind of unnecessary thoughts. It gives you the same mental steadiness as a master monk's as well as a good amount of extra thinking time. Also, you see everything slowed down so you will have a detailed view of every action, giving you time to plan your next move or analyze a fast situation, or jutsu. Just like the previous jutsu, it's limited only by the quantity of Ranpu chakra you. The kid was excited that he could do something so awesome and was wondering if Kurama knew anything more. Unfortunately, the fox couldn't remember anything more except that he could purify another person by placing his hands directly on the skin of that person and pumping pure Ranpu chakra into that person. Flashback end. 2 months later, on the 10th of October was the festival celebrating the Yondaime Hokage's defeat of the Kyuubi, and coincidentally it was also Naruto's birthday. And what a birthday present he got. He was kicked out of the orphanage, the caretakers saying he was old enough to live on his own. And by live, she really meant and hoped die. For the next 4 months and 3 weeks he managed to survive, during which, when he fainted from hunger, he was found by Ayame and her father Tsuki and given his first ever bowl of ramen. Besides saving him from death, he fell in love with the stuff. They also notified the Hokage, who turned the caretakers at the orphanage into weekly practice dummies for Ibiki, also known as the sadist, head of the torture and interrogation division, and Anko, his second in command. Sarutobi also gave Naruto an apartment in the slums, as this was the only place that accepted him. Later that day he went to the woods to train his Shinsugen and Sojin Seishin. He was making good with this since Kurama stopped sending his will with the Biju chakra that leaks into the boy due to the seal. This cured his chakra of instabilities since the blue one stopped fighting the red one, giving him a boost in stamina as well. The blonde then noticed a small girl 150 feet away from him, using his Ranpu-empowered eyes, about to be attacked by a bear. He took off in her direction to help her, but when he got close enough to hear her, he saw a beautiful woman rushing to her side. She was dressed in a light sky blue kimono with white rose patterns on it. She had silky dark blue hair that reached to her waist, with 2 bangs on each side of her face. And what he noticed the most was the fact that she had the same milky white eyes that the little girl had. But her eyes had pupils compared to the girl, and some veins were bulging out around them. She ran towards the bear at high speed, and Naruto activated his 2 Ranpu jutsu on instinct and watched how she got into a stance with her feet spread apart, left in front of right. Her left arm was stretched a few inches above the left foot with the palm facing the sky. Her right arm followed the same line that her left created and was higher above her right leg since her torso was bent towards the front. The boy noticed that in each of her hands, the index and middle fingers were grouped together and were stretched more than the others. He also noticed how chakra formed a sort of sharp tip or needle on the tips of the said fingers. The woman then leapt at the bear, yelling, "Hake Rokujian Sho, 8 trigrams, 64 palms." Naruto's eyes widened as she saw her hitting the bear's tenketsu, chakra points. He knew about them because Kurama told him all about the chakra system during one of his visits to his mindscape. 2 points, she said, and struck 2 tenketsu. 4 points, and struck another 2. 8 points, another 4. 16 points, closing 8 more. 32 points, she hits 16 more. 64 points, she finishes with the 32 last hits. Naruto was mesmerized by the movements as they flowed with grace and power as well as speed and precision. If he didn't have his jutsus on, he would have seen only a blur, but with them active the action was engraved into his memory. The woman then relaxed and her eyes lost their pupils, deflating the blood vessels near them. She then turned to her daughter. Naruto saw this and took it as a sign to scram. A week later he found himself practicing in the same woods again. He didn't even notice it was late. In the village there was another festival to celebrate the signing of the peace agreement between Konoha and Kumogakure, village hidden in the clouds. There was a huge procession earlier as the head Kumo nin entered in front of the cloud delegates. For Naruto this meant more noise, More smells of cooked food late into the night and especially more drunkard. Avengers, against the demon. He was resting a little with his Shinsugen active when he noticed an unknown presence sneaking into the Hyuga compound. He hid inside some bushes. Moments later, that same shinobi came out with a bag that contained the girl he saw a week ago. Kidnap, he thought. He jumped out of the bushes, Shinsugen alit. Let her go, he commanded. The shinobi was a little surprised, but then he noticed that he sensed no other presence nearby. Get out of my way, brat. He returned. Naruto growled a little and then launched forward. I said let her go. The boy spoke, jumping to punch at the guy in the face. The man simply evaded and sent a strong kick to Naruto's abdomen that caused the boy to spit blood and fly 15 feet away. Kit, use my power. Kurama urged the boy. The blonde then felt a huge amount of power surge through him and his body flashed with a thin aura of orange light. He then kicked his feet and blasted at the kidnapper with incredible speed and hit a pressure point that paralyzed the man, making him fall limp on the ground. He then checked on the girl, and when he noticed she was unharmed, he let go of his Nissan's chakra. Naruto then coughed blood and lost consciousness, falling face first into the ground. Just then Hiyashi ran out the house and knelt near the two children, and two Anbu appeared near. Hiyashi-sama, are you alright? We felt an unknown chakra spike somewhere around here. The cat-shaped masked Anbu asked the Hyuga head with a woman's voice. The man answered back. I felt the same spike as well, but when I awoke I activated my Byakugan and saw this boy fighting this man. I rushed out to intercept them, but by the time I got here both had passed out, said Hiyashi, pointing at the two while making sure his daughter was alright. Isn't that Naruto? I know him because Hokage-sama has me guard him sometimes, the cat Anbu mentioned. The unknown is still alive. I don't know if that boy was lucky or aimed for it, but he hit a pressure point near the right shoulder and paralyzed him. He will come to in about 2 hours. And he reached for his mask. He pulled it off. It was the Kumo head nin. What was Naruto doing fighting him here? Cat asked. Wait, Neko, cat. I can smell knockout drugs, said the second Anbu who had a wolf mask. What? Cat was surprised. They then checked the pockets of the Kumo nin and found a small bottle filled with liquid as well as a handkerchief that gave off the smell. All three of them looked at the sleeping little girl and said in unison. Kidnapping. Then Cat said, what's wrong with the boy? Hiyashi activated his Byakugan and looked at the kid and then answered. He appears to be exhausted, has some internal injuries to his right lung and a broken rib that are already healing. It doesn't seem serious. I will bring this boy inside my compound to be looked after until he heals. You should take that scum to the TNIHQ. He then went inside the house. Hi. They both answered in unison and picking up the unconscious shinobi and disappeared. The next day Naruto awoke inside an expensive futon in an unfamiliar house. He jumped out of bed and noticed a sharp pain in his side. He was also found out that he was dressed in an expensive-looking sleeping robe made of silk. Then the memory of last night's fight came to him and figured out that his pain was caused by a kind of injury. Don't worry, Kit. I will have you patched up by noon, the fox reassured him. Ni-san, do you happen to know what happened to me after? Sorry, Naruto, but when you black out it cuts my connection to the outside world as well. I see. Then there was a knock at the door. Naruto-sama, are you awake yet? A soft woman's voice asked behind the screen of the door. Yes. Could you please tell me where are we? We are in the Hyuga compound main branch house. If you can, will you get changed and follow me? Hiyashi-sama wants to see you for breakfast. Sure. The blonde looked around but couldn't find his clothes. Sorry, but could you please tell me where can I find my clothes? Your clothes have been sent to be washed. As soon as they dry they will be delivered to this room. Until then feel free to use the clothes on the table, she answered. Thank you. Naruto got dressed in the white silk kimono with a high-quality black sash that was on the table and walked out the door. He then saw the woman standing in a kneeling position, Caesar if I'm not mistaken. She was fair but not what you would call a stunning beauty, but she radiated a calming sensation. She had the same milky white Byakugan as the rest of the Hyuga and was dressed in a simple yet expensive-looking kimono with a dark blue sash and had a long piece of white silk covering her forehead tied in a cute bowtie to the right of her head highlighting her dark blue hair. "Follow me please," she said after getting up. Would you mind me asking your name, miss?" Naruto said, a little shaky, still nervous for being in the compound. "Yukihime Hyuga, but you may call me Yuki." She smiled. "Nice to meet you, Yuki-san." He bowed his head slightly. She did the same. Moments later they arrived at a large door and Yuki said, "Hiyashi-sama, Naruto-sama has arrived. Send him in." Hiyashi answered. She opened the door and Naruto entered. The door closed behind him and the boy noticed that he was in a big dining room with Hiyashi in the center of what looked like a group of old Hyugas. Except that to the man's right stood the same woman that defeated the bear and to his left stood what looked like a clone of Hiyashi, only that he was wearing a Konoha nin's Hitai headband. Naruto stood standing 2 steps away from the door. Kurama had taught him proper etiquette when dealing with nobles. One of the rules was to never do something if they don't invite you first. "Please, sit down and eat." The head Hyuga invited Naruto. "Thank you, sir." Naruto bowed and took a place at the table, but before he ate he had to ask something. I thank you once again for inviting me, Hiyashi-sama, but I must ask, why are you doing this for me?" He asked, hoping he wasn't rude. "Is it that odd for a father to offer a meal to his daughter's rescuer? You are only 5 years old and yet you have received internal injuries fighting for my girl's safety. I would like to thank you and offer you a room to stay here until you recover." Naruto blushed and looked in his lap until he hears a kind and loving voice. "And I would like to thank you as well. You risked your life for a complete stranger and that is a very commendable action," said the beautiful woman next to Hiyashi. "It was nothing. Forgive me, but who are you?" "Oh my, forgive me, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Hinata-chan's mother. My name is Hyuga." Just then she was interrupted by an old man at the end of the table. "Never. I will not allow that demon spawn to desecrate our clan's name even if I die fighting." And with that he charged at Naruto with his left hand forward and his right back. Naruto activated his Shinsugen, Sojin Seishin, and drew on the Biju's chakra, barely dodging that man's Juyuken strike. "Shit, he really is trying to kill me. There is only one thing I can do now and I do hope it works." The blonde jumped back and flew through an open door into the Hyuga's backyard. He then proceeded to stand still with his eyes closed. The old man came charging at him, ignoring Hiyashi's orders to stand down. He then fired a palm full of chakra at Naruto. Naruto spun on his heel and avoided that strike, surprising everyone present. He was 3 feet away from the old man when he opened his eyes and they were shining with an intense white glow. He then bent his torso towards the elder Hyuga and spread his legs, left forward with his arm above it, palm to the sky. The right side was a mirror image of his left, with the mirror being the boy's spine. The elder seemed to be frozen in place from the sight. A green yin-yang circle appeared with both of them in the middle of it, at the center of other concentric green circles. The blonde then said in a voice that lacked emotion, "You are within my reach. Hake Hyaku Nijuahachi Sho. 8 trigrams 128 palms." He then gathered Kurama's chakra to energize his body and blasted the senile old Hyuga's non-vital tenketsu. 2 strikes, 4 strikes, 8 strikes, 16 strikes, 32 strikes, 64 strikes. By now the old man was backed against a wooden training post that was being cracked by the intense chakra that went through the old man. 128 strikes. And with the last hit, the massive wooden post was destroyed and the elder sent flying to a wall, cracking it as he hit. He then fell limp and panting. After confirming his opponent's defeat, Naruto relaxed, allowing the Biju's chakra to recede. This made him wobble and pant as the strain of this energy on the boy's young body was a little too much for it to handle. Then he heard a thud. The blonde turned around and saw a lot of stupefied Hyuga besides Hiyashi and his clone, kneeling over his collapsed wife, both of them calling for a doctor. Naruto gathered what remained of his stamina and jumped to their side. What happened to her? The boy said as he dragged himself to Hiyashi's side. The man was holding his wife's head as she was unconscious, breathing hard and sweating like she had a bad nightmare. My wife has a sickness that causes her internal organs to poison her body, and it only gets worse whenever she is stressed or excited. The birth of our second daughter Hanabi made it worse to the point that she can die from just about anything that causes her surprise or upsets her. I try to protect her the best that I could, but this event might just be. The apparently emotionless man felt a tear dripping down tear as he closed his eyes and bit his lip. Naruto was torn up inside by this news. Even though he was defending himself, he was to blame for this as well. And she was one of the few people that looked at him kindly and even appreciated him, and she was now dying, slowly poisoned by her body. Wait, poison. That's it. The blonde remembered something. Kurama. He started mentally shouting. What is it, Kit? The fox responded. Please. Give me all the power you can. Answered the boy. What's wrong? Ask me later. Now please. Okay. Naruto felt power rising up from within him. He started glowing, being covered by an orange aura that looked a lot like flames. Think chakra cloak, but make it more transparent and less obvious, making some of the Hyugas present take a step back. In one swift motion he exposed the collapsed woman's abdomen and placed his right hand on it and his left on her forehead. Hiyashi almost backhanded him. How dare he disgrace his wife? Has this boy no shame? But the man then noticed the boy's hands glowing intensely white that made it difficult to look at them. The hands glowed even brighter and the light extended from his hands, slowly covering the woman's body. Hiyashi then noticed that the color in his wife's cheeks was returning and her breathing was returning to normal. She was calming down. Intrigued by this change, the man activated his Byakugan and watched as the white chakra flowed through his loved one's body, removing any harmful substance from her bloodstream, energizing her as it passed through her organs. When this was finished, the woman lay peacefully asleep and Naruto passed out from exhaustion. Ni-sama, honorable brother, what happened? Hiyashi's clone asked. Hazashi, this boy, that chakra, cleaned my wife's body and strengthened her. I don't know how, but he purified her blood and saved her life. He passed out from the strain. Take him inside to rest and have someone watch over him, ordered the head Hyuga as he picked up his sleeping wife bridal style and took her inside the house. Hi, Hazashi answered and moved to the boy, lifting him up in a similar manner. I don't know how you did it, kid, but you earned Hiyashi's gratitude twice now, he whispered to the blonde. The blonde responded, Yuki-san. The man realized what the boy was saying. Send for Yukihime and have her watch over this boy, Hazashi ordered, and the present Hyuga complied. 2 days later, Naruto was sleeping when he felt something cold and wet moving across his face. He opened his eyes and saw Yuki knelt down next to his head, wiping his forehead. Hello, Yuki-san. What time is it? He asked wearily. Good morning, Naruto-sama. It is 9 o'clock in the morning. You slept the whole day after you saved Hiyashi-sama's wife and the day after. I watched over you this whole time, she said with a smile. Thank you, and I'm sorry for being a bother, said a slightly embarrassed Naruto. It was no trouble, Naruto-sama, she answered to the boy, but her eyes clearly showed pain. Liar. Your eyes are like mine, they show pain. Why? The boy was concerned and saddened. The woman bit her lip and lashed her head at the boy. Why do you care? Nobody does, she answered. The boy stood silent. What do you know about pain? You are a child that does nothing but dream, play, and then head home where your parents feed you and read you a bedtime story. I'll tell you, you know nothing of true pain. The boy just bit his lip and closed his eyes, turning his face away. I am a branch family member. We are servants to the main house. She then undid the silk cloth on her head and revealed a mark that looked like a swastika with hooks at the end and 2 horizontal lines on each side that had hooks on the ends facing the main part. This is a seal that the main house members put on the branch families when we are young to keep our eyes from being used by non-clan members. It destroys our Byakugan when we die. But it is also used by the main branch when we get out of line. When they use this, it fries our minds with pain. Naruto looked at her with surprise and sadness. You just saved my cousin's wife, thank you. She was always kind to us, but don't expect me to thank you for making the main house happy. She snapped. A short pause later. For all I care about that, you can go to hell. Yuki Haim. A man's shout came from behind them. It was a very angry Hiashi Hyuga with his Byakugan activated. I came here hearing shouts from this room and find you insulting my daughters and my wife's savior. I think you forgot your place. He growled at her. She cowered away from him looking terrified. Please forgive me, Hiashi-sama. I didn't. Before she could finish, the man raised a half seal and she fell to pieces in pain, screaming like she was on fire. Stoop! Yelled Naruto as he tackled Hiashi to the ground, causing him to release his jutsu. Yukihime fell on her hands and knees panting. Yuki-san. The boy ran to her and grabbed her shoulders. He then placed a hand on her forehead and it started glowing white. Yukihime felt the lingering pain disappear from her head and then looked at Naruto. Why? After the horrible things I told you, why are you helping me? Ji-san says that you don't need a reason to help somebody in pain, and I agree. He said with a smile. Besides, I think I came to see you like Ine-san, though I'm not sure. I never had a family or even a home. I've lived on the streets for a while now, hiding from bad people who want to hurt me, until Ji-san got me a place to stay all to myself. Besides, I know what's like to carry a mark that you didn't deserve. Naruto said this with a smile and lifted his shirt, showing a lot of scars and the Kyuubi seal. Yukihime gasped at the sight. Those scars showed a wide range of injuries, but a certain one caught her attention. It was pretty fresh and was the size of an adult's palm on the boy's right side. Naruto noticed this. That one I got about 3 weeks ago when, one night, a drunken shinobi hit me on the back of my head. When I woke up, I was tied to a post and had alcohol poured over me. The man was laughing hard and then snapped his fingers. Sparks came from them and lit the alcohol, and me with it. He passed out after one more swig of his booze. I was lucky that he didn't use wire, and so the ropes burned and I got away only with that injury. It was one of the worst times. I'm usually only looked at with eyes of hatred or ignored. When that's not enough, I get chased, starved, kicked, stabbed, or beaten half to death, worse on my birthday, but this guy got creative, he said, smiling. It was only a half-truth. What he didn't tell her was that he could have gotten worse if Kurama didn't surround him with a chakra cloak, but it was too slow and he still got burned. Yukihime was shocked. She had a look of dread on her face that was worse than the one when Hiashi came barging into the room. This child suffered so much and he still had the will to live. He was barely close to 5 years of age and he had endured more than most veteran shinobi. Hiashi was boiling mad. His best friend's legacy, his wife's savior and his daughter's rescuer had to suffer so much and he didn't know. Sarutobi is going to get an earful. Yuki then realized the truly horrible words she said to him and jumped, embracing him. I'm sorry, Naruto-sama. I said all those cruel things to you. I didn't know. I'm truly sorry. She cried. It's okay. You didn't know. Oh, and stop calling me Sama. It makes me feel weird. He smiled, rubbing her back. Okay, Naruto-kun. The boy then got up and walked towards Hiashi, who was now standing. The man looked furious. Naruto then stopped 3 feet away from the man and bowed deeply. Hiashi-sama, I am deeply sorry for my actions earlier. I accept any punishment for them in exchange for Yuki-san being forgiven, he said with full honesty. No, Naruto-kun. Stop. You don't have to do that for me. Hiashi then dropped down to the boy's height and hugged the boy. Of course. Don't worry about that. There will be no consequences. Just then the door opened and the man's wife entered and saw the scene. She was surprised but quickly smiled. Hiashi-san, Hokage-sama is here and wants to talk to you about that Kumo shinobi that tried to take Hinata. Hiashi's face took on a light frown. Thank you, dear. I will go talk to him. Besides, I have a few extra things to talk with him. Naruto-kun, would you like to take a bath in the meantime? Oh, I will take him. And Yukihime, would you like to join us? She smiled even more. My pleasure, answered Yuki. Naruto then said, I can do it myself, miss. Oh, that's right, I never got to introduce myself. My name is Hyuga Haruko and I cannot let a child bathe by himself. Our baths are pretty big and you could drown if you don't know where the deep parts are, she said to the boy in a kind matter-of-factly way. Pretty, whispered the blonde. Sorry, what? She asked. I said, that you have a pretty name. He blushed. Why, thank you, Naruto-kun, now let's go. She giggled. He nodded and followed both women to the bath. Hiyashi then went to see the Hokage. When he got there, his brother Hizashi was already engaged in short talk with the man. I apologize for keeping you waiting, Hokage-sama, said the Hyuga head. No problem, Hiyashi. I came here to tell you the situation with the Kumo nin Naruto caught, the aged Hokage answered. Ibiki said that he was a pretty hard nut to crack, but he eventually confessed to the kidnapping. He also said that the treaty was a cover-up to get a chance to take Hinata back to Kumo with him and have her breed a lot of Byakugan shinobi. Hearing this, Hiyashi shattered the glass of water in his hand, but his face remained emotionless. The Hokage continued, after we sent message to Kumo asking them what is the meaning of this, they responded accusing us of lying about the attempted kidnapping and also you of attacking and injuring their head nin. They first asked for your head, and at the sound of this Hizashi, who was sitting at their side, cringed and whispered, bastards. Both Hiyashi and the Hokage looked at him, but then the village leader continued, but backed down as soon as they received the filmed confession from their ninja as well as the news that it was not you, but a 5-year-old boy was the one that beat one of their best shinobi. I guess they were quite embarrassed. All men in the room smirked. Sarutobi then asked, speaking of which, where is Naruto and what is he doing? Making Hiyashi cringe and answer. Hokage-sama, you don't need to worry about the boy. He is here and is now taking a bath with my wife and his attendant. We are looking after him, the Hokage smiled, which is not what I can say about your part. The Sandaime dropped the smile. What do you mean, Hiyashi? The Fire Shadow asked. I mean, Hokage-sama, exactly what you heard. I just found out that he is tortured and that there are attempts at his life on a daily basis from the village. Weren't you supposed to watch over him, Hokage-sama? But I do, Hiyashi. Then tell me, Hokage-sama, why was the boy nearly burned alive 2 weeks ago? Hiruzen's face went white. What? The cage screamed. He told his attendant Yukihime that, 2 weeks ago, he was tied to a post by an inebriated shinobi, drenched in alcohol, and set on fire. The nin passed out from the booze and Naruto was left to burn. He was lucky that the ropes burned before he could die. And then I saw the unmistakable palm-sized burn scar on his body, next to others that showed cuts, burns, whippings, stabbings, brandings and many others. And these are the visible ones. If he didn't possess what he did, he would have died a long time ago. Now tell me, Hokage-sama, how could you let this happen? Hiyashi flared. Hizashi and Sarutobi felt like throwing up. How could that happen to a child? Hiyashi, I knew about the attempts and had Anbu guarding him 24/7, but I didn't know that things were this bad. I love the boy like my grandson. The senior shinobi said. I have no doubt that you care for the boy, Hokage-sama, but it appears that not all Anbu are loyal to you. The head Hyuga then let out a sigh. I have decided to take the boy in, to train and look after him. My wife also fully agreed with this. The Hokage was surprised. But Hiyashi, won't he be looked down upon here? Besides, how will you train him? He doesn't have the Byakugan. I don't think it will be a problem. The boy defeated a Hyuga counselor with a perfect, Hake Hyaku Nijuahachi show, avoiding any vital points. Sarutobi nearly passed out. What? How? I don't know. But I can train him if he can see the Tenketsu. That is, if I have your approval, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen got into a thinking pose for a couple of seconds and answered, I need to speak to Naruto first. Just then the doors opened and Haruko entered. Oh my, I'm sorry for interrupting your conversation. I thought you would be finished by now, she said with a gentle voice. No problem, I was going to call for Naruto anyway. How was the bath? Hiyashi spoke. His wife giggled softly. He was very well behaved. I find it surprising considering that he is a boy. They usually run away from anything to do with baths. She looked at the men and they all blushed slightly in embarrassment. The only thing that disturbed me was when he asked if the water is hot all the time. The men raised an eyebrow. I asked him about the source of his question and he told me that at his apartment, the only time he gets hot water was between 6 o'clock and 6:05 a.m., and that he was always chased away from the onsen public baths. Sarutobi's face lost a lot of wrinkles frowning. But that wasn't the true shocker. I almost fainted when I saw his body, she said looking to the floor. His whole skin was a canvas painted with scars. I then activated my Byakugan and noticed that all his organs had signs of past trauma and nearly every bone was broken and healed multiple times. He is also slightly malnourished as a quarter of his ribs are visible through the skin. At his age they should not be like that, but he has absolutely no baby fat. I asked him if he was eating well and he told me that most of the time he eats only ramen since most stores chase him away or they overcharge him for expired food. The Hokage was now clenching his fists so hard that his fingernails drew blood. Ibiki will be busy for a while. That shocked me and so my illness began to accentuate while holding him in the water with his back facing her. I nearly passed out but he noticed this and used his power to help me. He started panting a little and then his stomach growled. I remembered that he had not eaten in 2 days, but he was still doing his best to help me even though he barely had enough energy to walk. I sent Yuki to bring him something to eat. When she came back with some sandwiches he refused to eat until I would eat as well, saying that, and I quote, sick people should eat to get better. Oh Kami, how can this boy be so kind after all that has happened to him? I was curious and asked him and he told me that he has 4 people he cares most about and he keeps going for them. I asked him who and he told me that they were me, Yuki, his, Gigi, grandfather, old man. She glanced at the Hokage who blushed and smiled, and another person who was a secret. He also told me that it was that person who taught him about manners, chakra and chakra system. It was also that person who always helped him and taught him the true meaning of being Hokage. He told me it is his dream to be, and I quote, the Hokage greater than all others before him, even, Gigi, and Yondaime. After we finished bathing I told Yuki to prepare Naruto-kun a proper meal. Everybody in the room smiled and nodded, with Sarutobi once again blushing. Oh dear, I'm sorry for rambling on like this but I thought that you should know this. I will take my leave now. She bowed. Wait Haruko. I want to see Naruto when he has finished his meal and I want you to be here if you think you are able to stay, asked Hiyashi. Of course. Naruto-kun's power gave me a lot of energy. She giggled. Just then there was a knock on the door. Haruko-sama, come in Yuki. The woman answered. Yuki came in and bowed. I have come to tell you that Naruto-kun finished his meal per your instruction. Oh dear, that was quick. Did those sandwiches spoil his appetite? Haruko was concerned. No, that was not the case. He finished everything on the table with seconds. Yuki and Haruko sweat dropped anime style. But there was enough food on the table for 7 people. He asked for seconds and finished them in 10 minutes. And now the men's sweat dropped. Hi, I guess the speed was in subconscious fear that the food will be taken from him. As for the quantity, I looked at him with my Byakugan and saw that it was absorbed by his system at an astonishing rate, slowing down as he finished the meal. What I can tell from this is that he has a variable metabolism that he can control subconsciously, but it doesn't surprise me anymore. Both women giggled and the men nodded and smiled. Yuki, my husband and Hokage-sama wish to speak to him. Haruko told the woman. Hi, and she left. 2 minutes later she returned with Naruto who was dressed in a white kimono with black pants. He looked in the room and saw the Hokage. He got excited and ran towards the man. GG. Hey there Naruto. The old Kage embraced the boy he saw as a grandson. Hiyashi then coughed and said, Naruto-kun, there is something important I wish to ask you, but first would you tell Hokage-sama and me what you told Haruko and Yuki before and in the bath, with details. The boy nodded and started telling the whole story with even more details whilst staying in Haruko's lap with their hands touching, occasionally flaring his Ranpu chakra to keep her healthy. And that was a good idea because the story was much more gruesome than they originally thought. Naruto told them that ever since he could remember he was looked at with eyes that saw him as something less than human, that the first memory he had was a punch from his orphanage caretaker, that every 2 or less weeks he is chased and half the times he gets away. But when he gets caught he is starved, humiliated, robbed, punched, kicked, mugged, slashed, stabbed, burnt, crushed, used as target practice for jutsu, though rare since it alerts shinobi of chakra usage, and many other horrible actions that are too painful to remember, until the Anbu come, but sometimes or later they never appear. The women were tearing up and embracing him tight. The men were boiling with killer intent. Oh, Ibiki will be busy indeed. Naruto, why didn't you tell me about any of this? The old man was furious. I didn't think it was a big deal, said the boy, a little frightened by his Gigi's reaction. It was a big deal, Naruto. You could have been killed each time, yelled Sarutobi, making the boy shiver and back up into Haruko, who noticed this. Hokage-sama, please calm down. You are scaring the poor boy, she said with motherly love, tightening her hands around the blonde, reassuring him that he was safe. The old man then looked at Naruto, who was still shivering a little bit. I'm sorry, Naruto. It's just that I care for you and I don't want you to suffer like that, and neither did the Yondaime Hokage. The man said, rubbing his forehead. It's okay, I know. I just thought that I did something to make them mad at me and didn't want to upset you too, said the boy. Sarutobi felt his heart split in two. From now on, don't keep things from me like that, okay? He said, smiling at Naruto. Yup. The blonde showed his foxy grin. Other than that, what can you tell me about these abilities of yours, like what they do, and who taught you how to manipulate chakra? The man gently smiled at the boy. Kurama ni-san did. Oops, he said, looking away. What's the matter, Naruto? Who is Kurama? The man nervously asked. I'm not supposed to tell anybody. The kid fidgeted. Why is that? Well, every time somebody mentions about it they get shushed immediately, saying something about a law, Naruto said matter-of-factly. The temperature in the room dropped a few degrees and all the people in the room began looking like ghosts. Naruto, the Hokage, broke the silence. Is Kurama, the Kyuubi no Yoko? The Hokage wearily asked. I told you I'm not supposed to talk about it. I don't want to break the law, the boy said, lowering his chin into his chest but keeping his eyes on the old man. The old man's sweat dropped. I know about the law, Naruto, and you and I and anybody else who you tell are allowed, so come on, is it the Kyuubi? The old man hoped not, but Naruto nodded, much to his displeasure. Naruto, that demon is evil and dangerous. You should know better than to talk with it. He could, Hiruzen shouted, but was interrupted by the blonde. Stop it. Don't be mean to Kurama ni-san. He is not bad. He helps me all the time while you don't even know about me being beaten. You don't know anything about him. Naruto snapped at the man, making him jump in surprise and a little shame that the boy was right about him not knowing about torture. But Naruto, if he isn't evil, why did he attack the village last time? The Hokage asked, more rhetorically than curious. About that he said he was really sorry because he couldn't stop himself. He said he was under a jutsu, or something like that. Genjutsu, corrected Haruko. Yes, genjutsu. He was under a genjutsu, and when he woke up he was already being sealed. All he remembered was a creep in a mask with an eye that was red with a strange pattern. He called it eternal Manjingu, or Mangekyu, Sharingan, Sharingan dear. Haruko corrected again with a little amusement at the mistake, but she was still a little unnerved by the boy's words. Yes, Sharingan. Eternal Mangekyu Sharingan, and after that he blacked out. He told me he was sealed in somebody else before but couldn't remember who. Anyway, he was still sealed inside that person when the creep with the mask appeared before him, and then poof, he was inside me. Naruto, answered the man. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt like he lost a couple of his few remaining years. If this was true, it meant that not only an Uchiha would be responsible for the destruction from 5 years ago, but also that the fox was genuinely helping Naruto. Naruto, are you sure that he is not lying to you? The Hokage said in a softer tone. The boy nodded violently. He is not lying. I know how eyes of a person that lies look like. Excuse my rudeness, but I can vouch for that. He also saw through my lies. Yuki spoke, a little embarrassed. How can you tell, kid? Hazashi Aked. Well, Mr. Hazashi Hyuga, the blonde was interrupted. Well, Hazashi-san, I always notice how most people look at me with anger, and I try to stay away from them so they won't beat me. I guess I just got used to looking at everybody's eyes and try to figure out how they see me. From there I must have figured out how to tell lies. I can also see the pain when people are hurting, the blonde answered. How so? The man asked. Well, they look like mine. This made everybody flinch. So don't be mean to Ni-san. He's a good guy. It's just that he's lonely and misunderstood. And Naruto proceeded to tell them the story about the birth of the Biju and the Sage of Six Path, about how greed and ambitions changed the beasts for the worse and how Kurama fell into despair and succumbed to anger. The people in the room were deep in thought. The story seemed plausible. That would mean that the Sage of Six Paths was real and that the beasts were his legacy. Naruto then froze in place with his eyes closed, making Haruko worry as nobody else noticed this. After a while the boy opened his eyes. GG, Kurama Ni-san says if you take my hand and meditate then you can meet him yourself. Oh, and he told me that don't worry about the danger, you will only be a mental protection, or something, projection. Haruko was giggling that she was on a roll. Naruto continued, and that he is behind the seal. The blonde reassured the man. Hiruzen hesitated a little bit but then grabbed the boy's hand. He then closed his eyes and then started relaxing. He felt drawn into the boy and then found himself in a place that was slightly damp and dark. I looked like a small corridor with the floor wet by an inch of water and had pipes of red and blue that were connected by white cubes. He then heard Naruto calling for him. GG, over here. The voice came from one of the ends of the corridor that was illuminated and showed the boy's figure in shadowy outline. The man walked in that direction until he clearly saw a smiling Naruto. The aged man relaxed a bit. Nice place you got here, Naruto, he said with a bit of sarcasm and sadness. You should have seen it a month ago. It was a sewer. The boy responded. He then grabbed the cage's hand and told him to follow. They walked towards the light and then entered a large illuminated room that had the same wet floor, but you could not see the ends of it except for two large golden barred doors with that had a paper with the kanji for seal in the middle where the lock was. You could not see initially inside because of the shadows, but as you got close you could have sworn that on the other side was another dimension, as it had a grassy ground instead of the water that the blonde and the Hokage were walking on. Ni-san, we're here, said a happy Naruto. I see you brought guests, Kit. Two of them. The Biju smiled. Naruto and Hiruzen looked back and saw Haruko standing there looking confused. Oh my, why am I here? She asked, looking around a little dazed. Haruko, did you by any chance closed your eyes and relaxed when I was with Naruto in here? Asked Sarutobi, raising an eyebrow. I guess I did. I can't help that Naruto-kun's power is so relaxing, and when you touched his hand he channeled even more, she said, smiling and looking a little red in embarrassment. It matters not. If you are willing to chat I will allow you to stay. From what I understood from the kid you are a good person, one of his favorites, said Kurama with a smile, causing Naruto to blush and Haruko to smile even wider. He is a very good and kind boy. She pulled the blonde closer. Ahem. The Hokage fake coughed. Excuse my rudeness, but I believe that we have more important matters to discuss. Everybody else nodded. Now then, Kyuubi-san, I heard some very upsetting things from Naruto, but I wanted to confirm them for myself. If you don't mind, would you tell me what you told the boy, the short version, about the Sage of Six Paths and the night you escaped, he said with a serious face. Kurama nodded and began to tell him everything he told Naruto about his birth, a little bit about him growing up but nothing important, and of course, about the event of Konoha's destruction on the day the boy was born, with a little bit more detail as follows. Naruto, do you know when a female host seal is the weakest? Asked the fox. The boy just shook his head from side to side. It is when she is pregnant, with its weakest being when she gives birth. He answered. What does pregnant mean? Asked the boy, earning a sweat drop from everybody else except Haruko. It means when a woman has a baby in her belly, answered the woman while smiling. Ah, I remember now, answers the boy, whispering the last sentence. Now don't you ask how babies are put there, said an embarrassed Hokage. Don't need. I already know. Not interested into that stuff, at least not yet from what I found out, the boy said with a straight face. Oh, and how did you find out? Asked Haruko in a gentle motherly tone but with a hint of extra curiosity. The same place I learned what pregnant means. Gigi should learn to hide his smut better. The blonde let out a sigh and earned the cage an ice-cold glare from Haruko. The old man gulped but was saved by the fox. As I was saying, my last host had just given birth and the seal was weak. I wanted to get out and run away. I had no intention of destroying anything. The Biju answered with sadness. But then that masked bastard projected himself inside my host, made me go mad and broke the seal. I don't remember anything from then on until I was inside Naruto. Now Kurama presented a little bit of rage. Hiruzen was scanning the fox's expression for lies but did not find any trace of it. He had experience with this as he had to be on his toes as Cage of Konoha. It was either the case that the fox was telling the truth or he was a master liar, but the man decided to go with the first, considering that Naruto also trusted him. So that's all you remember from the time you escaped Kushina-chan's seal, Kyuubi-san? The man asked wearily. Yes, and call me Kurama. If I ever find th, the fox responded but was cut short by the blonde. Ni-san's previous host was someone named Kushina? Asked a curious Naruto. Sarutobi and Kurama froze. The tongue slip put the old man into a difficult situation. I remember that girl, answered Haruko. She was such a hothead. I guess that's why she had red hair. She giggled. What do you mean, Haruko-san? The blonde asked. The woman continued. Well, she was tomboyish, had red hair and a really nasty temper. I remember that when she first transferred into our class she was first called Tomato, because her hair and because she was a little chubby and was laughed at. The other humans in the room looked a little gloomy. Naruto knew it was wrong to laugh at others and Sarutobi remembered her. But then it got worse until one day half of the class cornered and started making fun of her, and she beat the hell out of them, Haruko said with a smile, causing the rest to shiver, even Kurama. From then on she was called Akai Chichio no Habanero, red hot blooded chili pepper. I think that her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Yes, that was her. I remember now that all my Konoha hosts were Uzumaki. I remember she was expecting you, kid. He said, smiling. Down below things were looking bad for Sarutobi. Naruto I. Sarutobi was sweating like a waterfall. You knew, was all the boy could say. His face was covered by shadows except for his mouth. I'm sorry. I didn't think that. I did it to protect you. Hiruzen was looking for a good way to tell the boy. Why didn't you tell me? I did it to protect you, Naruto. Your mother had powerful enemies and you would be in danger. We couldn't let them know that she had a son. You would have been in danger. The Hokage was desperately trying to calm the boy. He watched as tears fell down the boy's cheeks. Kurama could feel his emotions but decided to stay silent. And the fact that I am the only Uzumaki in the village is very discreet, he said, making the cage grab his head as he realized the mistake. Who was my dad? Naruto asked in a muffled tone. I don't know. The man put on his best poker face as he answered. Who was my father? The boy asked louder but not screaming. Naruto, I really don't know. The village leader started sweating. Don't lie to me. Naruto looked up with teary eyes and blazing white pupils. Why are you lying? Why aren't you telling me? Do you know how many times I went to sleep while crying? How each night I think that my parents hated me. That they gave me to the Yondaime to seal the Kyuubi in me and then left me to die. Do you know how bad it hurt to see every other kid has a parent, or even someone that cares for them when you are forced to dine in a dumpster? Do you? The boy broke. Hiruzen was close to breaking down. He couldn't believe what went on inside the boy. I asked you countless times about my parents, but you didn't know anything. I didn't know if they are dead or if they left me to die. Now tell me why do you still hide them from me? The old cage's knees gave way as the echoes of the boy's words hit him time and time again. He fell on his bottom, with him still looking at the boy who wasn't angry at all but was deeply sad. I tried to protect you, Naruto, from both the council and foreign affairs. Both your parent had powerful enemies that would have stopped at nothing to kill you if they found out that you were their son. Please, Naruto, understand that I did the best that I could to help you, vowed the man. I will ask you one more time. The blonde could crush rocks with that stare. Sarutobi closed his eyes and said, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage. The boy's eyes went wide for a moment and shut closed after sobbing silently. I know that I caused you so much pain and I know that I failed you, forgive me. The Hokage bowed deeply. I forgave you a long time ago. I resolved that if you knew and didn't tell me you had a good reason not to. Answered Naruto, causing the cage to look back to him. But know this. You told me once that trust is gained hard and lost easily and that to gain trust you have to give even more back. The boy closed his eyes. You didn't trust me to know who my parents were. You didn't trust me to keep their identity secret. If you told me to keep this a secret, they could have roasted me slowly and I wouldn't have talked so as to not disappoint you. Screamed the boy, making the cage start crying. Today you have gained my forgiveness for this, but you also lost my trust, and it will take a lot to get it back, Hokage-sama. Said Naruto, turning his back to the old man while he was stretching his arm out as if he wanted to grab the boy. Those last words fell on the man's heart like a ton of bricks. He was no longer, no longer Naruto's grandfather. I understand, Naruto. I let you down and I deserve that, but please do not hate your parents. They loved you more than anything and they wanted to see you grow up, but they died, impaled by Kurama-san's claw. Kurama looked down and away. Naruto turned back with a smile. Hate them? Why would I want to hate them? Everybody else blinked twice in confusion, anime style. They died protecting me and the village and gave me a friend and brother. They were great people that I can look up to. Just wait, Hokage-sama. I will surpass you and dad and then I will come for your seat, I promise you that. He said, raising a fist in a kind of straight punch motion. Kurama mentally renewed his vow to protect and help Naruto. The cage said that he will be waiting, and Haruko gave him a motherly kiss on his cheek that made him blush. Also, Hokage-sama, I want my dad's jutsus. Naruto said in a serious way. Hiruzen got into a thinking pose. Now that is a problem. I can give you the scroll for the jutsu, but it might be stolen from you or fall into the wrong hands. I know you are strong, but you are not strong enough to protect it. Said the man, with Naruto first pouting a little but agreed to the man's logic. The boy heard stories about how powerful the Hiraishin and Rasengan were and knew most people would die to get them. It didn't help that he was the demon brat, and that was a world of trouble alone. But I'll do better. I will have my guards teach you the Hiraishin and some other exercises secretly. They were your father's guards and they know it, but you will have to adapt it to yourself. Also, you are not allowed to use it until you are genin. Promise me that, said Sarutobi, and the boy promised. As for the Rasengan, I don't know anybody who can do except Jiraiya, your father's sensei, and he is out of the country for the next 5 years. I will see if he wants to teach you when he gets back. Deal. The boy said. You should get back. An hour has passed already and the people outside might get worried. Be careful, youngster. You lost the kid's trust. See that you do not lose his faith into you and Konoha. said Kurama, and the cage nodded with full resolve. Everybody, before we leave, I must tell you that what we talked about tonight about the Uchiha and Naruto's parents is a highest S-class secret. Naruto, you are allowed to tell anyone you like about your parents, but please try to keep it secret from all but your most trusted people, or you will be in danger. I know it is tempting, especially when you are teased by others, but think of this as shinobi training. Shinobi are entrusted with secret information all the time and must not reveal it except to certain individuals. Also, Haruko, you may reveal what happened here to Hiashi, but do so in a secure zone and tell him that revealing this is penalized by death, understood? Both Naruto and Haruko nodded and then turned to Kurama to say goodbye. Also, Ni-san, why do you call Hokage-sama, youngster? He questioned, and both Hiruzen and Haruko looked at the fox. Kit, he may be old by your standard, but I have lived for centuries. To me he is little more than a toddler. Sarutobi's sweat dropped and smiled, and Haruko giggled. Then I guess I should call you Kurama Jii-san, hee. Smirked Naruto. Why, you little, newborn baby? Kurama answered, smiling. Very original. Everybody else thought, sweat dropping. By Ni-chan. Smiled Naruto. Hokage-sama, please snap out of it. Yelled an ox-masked Anbu. The old man returned from Naruto's mindscape looking a little worse for wear, but recovered fast enough to answer to the call. What is it, Ox? Asked the cage as if he'd just woken up from a nightmare. Thank Kami, you are all right, sir. I came to inform you that the council has called for a meeting to discuss the Kumo situation. It has already started, said the Anbu, kneeling on one foot and with a fist touching the ground. Naruto was just coming to and was listening to the conversation with interest, forgetting to shut down the chakra to his eyes. I see. I must get to them immediately, but I also have something critical to discuss here. What to do? I know, said Hiruzen, smiling in surprise of his idea. The aged cage got up and put his index and middle fingers from both hands in a cross shape and yelled, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique. Instantly another Hiruzen appeared near him. Hiashi, I am sorry to leave on such short notice. I gave Haruko permission to give you all the information that I have acquired here, but note that it is an S-class secret punishable by death. I will leave my clone here to talk to instruct Naruto on some small things like Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and various. Sarutobi stopped his matter-of-factly style speech and froze in place, looking at Hiashi, who had his eyes as wide as a saucer's and was sweating lightly. Hiashi, please tell me it is not like what I think is. Begged the frozen cage on a stick. I'm afraid I cannot lie, Hokage-sama, said the man, dropping his head and closing his eyes. Hiruzen let out a sigh and turned around to see 10 identical Narutos smiling at him. Hey Hokage-sama, this is so cool. All boys said at once. Hiashi noticed the change in the way the boy addressed the man, and, while he was happy that the blonde was giving the proper respect to the village leader, he couldn't help think something was wrong but kept his curiosity to himself. Naruto, how did you? The cage was stopped by the Anbu. Hokage-sama, the meeting, we must go now, said Ox, who was just as curious but kept his cool. The Hokage let out another sigh and left with the agent after saying goodbye but leaving his own clone behind. Naruto, when and how did you learn that jutsu? The clone cage asked. Just now, and since I forgot my Shinsugen no Jutsu active and saw you do it. Normally I would have to practice to get this right, like with the 8 trigrams 64 palms and 8 trigrams 128 palms, but this jutsu was pretty easy. And remember that in the original Naruto learned this jutsu from a scroll with nobody to show him how, tired after running from shinobi and in a couple of hours, and now he saw how chakra moved, he has a little better control and saw an example in front of him. Naruto, are you alright? Asked the worried old man. Sure. Why wouldn't I be? The boy his head to the side in a cute manner. Because this jutsu is a B-class kinjutsu that can kill you if you make too many clones. Even I become tired if I make that many clones. It takes a lot of chakra out of you. The cage answered. Oh, then it's no problem. I saw with the Shinsugen that I have more chakra than most ninja with those green vests. I think that they were called Shuenin. Also Ni-chan fills my chakra when I use mine so I don't get really tired unless I use it too fast or in one go, he said with a smile. The old man lost a lot of wind sighing today. They are called Chunin, Naruto. And if that is the case I will teach you how to use the jutsu properly, but promise me don't go overboard with these techniques at least until you get your Hitai 8. The man asked Naruto, giving up trying to argue with the boy. The blonde happily nodded. I'm serious, Naruto. If you feel even slightly winded, wait for Kurama-san to fill you up again until you use it unless it's in life or death situation. Promise me, the man said, grabbing the boy's shoulders. I promise on my Nindo, he said with a very serious expression and dispelled the clones. That was as good as a lethal blood seal placed on the kid. He never went back on his word when he promised, even more so when he did it on his Nindo. Ahem, forgive my disrespect, Hokage-sama, but I wish to ask the boy how he learned my family's advanced taijutsu moves, asked Hiashi. No problem, Hiashi. I'm also curious. Then they turned to Naruto, who was still holding Haruko's hand but was now standing up as her legs fell asleep with the boy sitting in her lap, so he wanted to let her recover. Naruto told them about the event 5 months after his birthday when, while practicing Sojin Seishin and Shinsugen, he spotted Hinata about to be attacked by a bear. He was about to jump in to help her when he saw Haruko floor the beast with the 8 trigrams 64 palms. My jutsus were still on and I was able to see how she did it. It was like a beautiful and deadly dance. I tried to do it myself and got it down in 4 days. The boy flashed his foxy smile. After I got the basic movement I just upgraded and finished just as that bad man was taking the girl, he said with a cute expression between pout and anger. Hiruzen was wiping the floor with his jaw. Hiashi was about to slap himself to wake up. Did this child just learn one of their most advanced moves in 4 days without instruction or background and recreated its more powerful variation in 2 other days? How much talent did this child have? He was even more convinced now to take in the boy for more reasons. One being that he could be a great addition to the clan's friend list, and the other being that he didn't want the boy to teach more ruthless people the Jukin's fighting moves and weaknesses. Haruko, on the other hand, was blushing a little. After all, Naruto just complimented her movements that day and was also a little honored to have been the boy's first sensei, teacher, even if unofficially. She giggled. Oh my, Naruto-kun, I'm not that good. Yes you are. You moved like a flower in the wind. If I wasn't using Sojin Seishin I wouldn't have seen any movements. I was lucky, he chirped. Haruko blushed even further and hugged the boy. Well, remember that one, Naruto-kun. That's how mothers get when defending their babies, she said, but realized the mistake, feeling the boy's chakra getting restless through her hand. That's how I would like to be for you, she said, smiling at the boy, who instantly jumped up in surprise. What do you mean? The boy was still a little upset but was more than curious to hear her out. Well, ask Hokage-sama, after he finishes explaining the shadow clone. I'm sure Hiashi told him what I mean. She put a finger on her lips, in a I'm not telling pose, and the other hand on the blonde's cheek. Naruto turned to Hiruzen, pouting a little but with stars in his eyes. Ahem, as I was saying, Naruto. The Kage Bunshin is an advanced kinjutsu that is used mainly for espionage. The professor started his lecture, but Naruto raised his hand school style. It means spying, dear, answered a smiling Haruko, and the boy dropped his hand. The Hokage then continued, it is used for spying because it creates an identical, that means exactly like the original, clone of the user. After it is dispelled, it transfers, that means it sends the information it learns back to the user. He tried to explain it so that a child could understand, but failed. Naruto was looking like a student the night before the exam with a "the fuck is this shit" expression. The Kage rubbed his temples. Let me explain, Hokage-sama, chirped Haruko. Naruto-kun, do you know what movies are? The boy nodded. Well, Imagine that the clone makes a movie of what he goes through, and when you dispel it, that means stop using it and send it away. At that moment, it gives you the movie of what he did, or learned, back to you so you can play it in your mind. She explained in a motherly manner. Oh, so that means I get its memories when I send it away, right? The boy said with wide eyes of understanding, looking at the Hokage. The men's sweat dropped and Hiruzen asked, Haruko, how did you do it? He said, disappointed in himself that even though he was the professor, he had a very hard time getting through to the child. She giggled and answered, you forget that I have a girl the same age and a nursing baby. The old man dropped his head between his shoulders. Being the Hokage, he had left his wife to raise their kids, so he was lacking in this department, but recovered quickly and turned to Naruto. So do you understand the shadow clone now, Naruto? The boy nodded. Good. Now before we get to the main topic, I want to ask you about your abilities. He looked at the blonde with interest. Naruto told the man what Kurama told him about his Ranpu chakra and its offspring jutsu, the Shinsugan and the Sojin Seishin, as well as the chakra's restorative powers. It is a wondrous power indeed, said Hiruzen, with Hiashi and Hazashi nodding in agreement. It gives me an idea. Naruto, how would you like to learn medical jutsus? The word jutsu immediately catches the boy's interest. When you will be 7, I will have someone instruct you. The boy pouted at the fact that he had to wait, since you will be busy using the Hiraishin, as well as a surprise if you accept it. The boy tilted his head to the side and a question mark almost appeared on top of his head, causing Haruko and the Hokage to giggle. Well, we came down to the main topic. Naruto, do you want to live here? Said the smiling old man with a little suspense. Naruto had a clueless expression and a crow flew in the background even though it was nighttime by now. He then looked at Haruko, who nodded, and then at Hiashi, who did the same. I know that this may seem like a dream, but Hiruzen didn't get to finish because he saw Naruto in Haruko's arms sharing a deep embrace. I'll take that as a yes, said the Hokage. All right, I will make the necessary arrangements. I wish you all a good night, in Naruto, be on your best behavior. And, poofed, out of existence. Naruto got out of the embrace and walked towards Hiashi and his brother. He stopped 2 feet from their table and bowed deeply to the man. Thank you, Hiashi-sama, he said. The men smiled lightly but immediately went to their emotionless expressions. It was no problem, Naruto. I am sorry that my clan's laws and regulations forbid me from adopting you, but I can offer you a permanent guest position, but that is for the better, I think, since it will prevent some of the non-cooperative members of the clan to use the clan seal on you, said Hiashi, making his brother cringe a little bit. But please think of me as your father. I will also teach you the clan's juken techniques, he said, surprising Hazashi. But Hiashi-sama, aren't those techniques secret? Naruto asked. Well, there are some regulations concerning main family forms and branch family forms, but those do not concern you. Since the juken is only useful with the Byakugan, I guess nobody made rules concerning non-clan members, answered the man, with both Hyuga males smirking at the last part. Well, I guess you can. Hiashi was interrupted when by the door guard. Hiashi-sama, Hinata-sama wishes to enter, the guard announced. Send her in. The man responded. A little girl with dark blue short hair and the same milky white eyes as the rest of the family entered. To-sama, I understood that Ka-san was here and she wanted to continue, but then saw the blonde boy with whisker marks on his face looking a little dazed at her, but soon he smiled. This caused a little blush in her as she started to fidget. Hinata is a sheltered princess and has little interaction with boys outside her family. Yes, sweetheart, her mother asked, but was clearly enjoying her daughter's response to the boy's presence. Hanabi-chan has been crying for some time now and the caretaker doesn't know what to do, she said, still looking at Naruto with the corner of her eye. Meanwhile, the boy bowed to Hiashi after he told the blonde that juken lessons start tomorrow and he will be training together with the little girl behind him. He approached her and waited for her to finish talking. Hello, I'm Naruto Uzumaki and looks like we will be training together. He said, wanting to assume his father's family name but decided it was not the time, stretching his arm out to the girl. She jumped back a little and hid behind her mother, who giggled. Hello, I'm Hi Hinata Hyuga. She stuttered, still clutching to her mother's kimono behind the woman, showing only half a face. Now Hinata-chan, those are very bad manners. Come out from there and greet the boy properly, she said in a soft, scolding tone. But Hinata tried to refuse but was forced by her mother's gentile hand and pushed towards the boy. Naruto stretched out his hand but she looked away, frightened. This made the blonde a little sad and he started to look away himself. He pulled back his hand and held it in his other hand. I see, I guess you don't want to touch me either, he said softly and with sadness in his eyes. This surprised the girl and made her feel like she did something wrong. Hinata-chan, Naruto-kun will not bite you. He is the one who got hurt saving you from the bad ninja that night. Haruko scolded, kindly and motherly, Hinata. The little Hyuga's eyes went very big in surprise, but then she took on a sad face as she understood what she did. She then lifted her shaking arm to the boy and said, thank you. Naruto immediately flashed his foxy smile and gently reached out and grabbed the girl's hand. It was no problem. Hinata blushed like crazy until he let go. Haruko giggled and got up from her sitting position. Well, I better go check on Hanabi-chan. Naruto, do you want to meet Hinata-chan's baby sister? She said. The boy nodded and together with Hinata and her mother left the room after bowing to Hiashi and Hazashi, who nodded. Ni-sama, are you sure it's wise what you are doing? You will have trouble with the elder council. Hazashi asked his brother. Hazashi, I understand there will be difficult times ahead, but most of the council has seen what Naruto can do and I think that the explanation I gave Hokage-sama will suffice. If not, I will remind them who is head of this clan whether they like it or not. That boy is very special and I owe it to Minato to see to this boy's well-being, and I think that having him as a friend of the clan will prove fruitful in the long run. Also, I expect you to support him however you can, seeing that he saved your life as well. Hiashi smirked at his brother while Hazashi raised an eyebrow. The Hyuga head then handed him a report scroll that Hiruzen subtly gave him that read. Report number 2765, H87. Subject. Kumo relations. After we secured a confession from the head ninja from Kumogakure that was caught by Naruto Uzumaki trying to kidnap Hyuga Hinata, we, the Konohagakure Council, demanded explanations from Kumo's relations department. The results surprised us. They denied the attempt. More than that, they demanded retribution for breaking the head nin's diplomatic immunity rights. The details are as follows. They demanded Hyuga Hiashi be handed over dead or alive under threat of war. The situation was resolved when a videotape of the accused shinobi's confession, performed under no physical torture, was sent, detailing not only that he was ordered to enact the kidnapping but also how Naruto Uzumaki, a 5-year-old child, defeated him without taking his life. End of report. Signed Morino Ibiki, head of Anbu T&I Division. Hazashi read the letter with dread. If Naruto hadn't caught the Kumo nin, then Hiashi would have to surrender to the demands of the cloud. But why did his brother claim that he was the one in danger? This caused him to raise an eyebrow at his elder brother. Hiashi let out a sigh. Hazashi, you know that if the worst happened I would have surrendered to their demands, said the man with his branch member brother, opening his mouth to say something but was stopped. But the council would have done anything and everything to stop that from happening, and knowing they would have most certainly killed you and let you take my place, and, I know you are brave and foolish enough to accept that fate, he said, looking to Hazashi who was staring at the floor. Hiashi then smiled. Naruto-kun has done more than I could ever repay him. He has rescued my daughter from a fate worse than death, he gave my wife a chance at a normal life, and he saved my dear brother's life. I know that traditions forced us apart and I cannot see you on equal footing and you cannot as well, but I still care for our bond. And Naruto-kun ensured that we will still be able to keep that bond between us. If that boy wanted my life I would gladly give it for him, Hazashi wanted to protest but couldn't, seeing the bare truth in his brother's words, but all that boy wants is a family and to be Hokage. I believe that he can achieve it and I will help him do so, and if that means I have to fight the council for that, then, those old farts be damned, I will. He said, making his brother chuckle. Meanwhile, in another section of the compound, Haruko opened a slider door followed by the two 5-year-olds. Inside was a Hyuga branch member gently bouncing a little baby girl trying to get her to stop crying. Let me have her, Keiko. The Hyuga matron told the woman. I don't know what happened, Haruko-sama. 1 minute she was happily asleep and then she started crying. I tried feeding her, changing her diaper, rocking her, even singing to her, but nothing worked. Keiko tried to explain. It's alright, Keiko. Remember that sometimes babies cry for their parents. Haruko tried to calm the woman. She picked up Hanabi from Kiko's hands and starting, shushing her, bouncing her up and down and telling her that mommy is here. This caused the baby to open her eyes a little and look at her mother. That was all that Naruto needed to see something was wrong. Haruko-san, I think that she is in pain, he said, making the woman jolt in surprise and worry. I thought of something, he said, and approached the mother who was holding her breath. Since the room was heated, Hanabi was only dressed in her diaper. Naruto then charged Ranpu chakra in his index and middle fingers, making the tips glow a little. He then moved his fingers to her head and she kept crying. Continuing down her throat, he went for both arms and got to the chest area, and Hanabi still didn't stop. He then went below the belly button and that's when she quieted down but was still sobbing. When Naruto moved his fingers, she took a second but started crying again. He then placed his fingers back and she stopped crying again. That's when it hit him. Her belly is hurting, he said, grabbing Haruko's arms and flashed his chakra to keep her in working condition. Oh Kami! Exclaimed all females except Hanabi. Haruko quickly grabbed the baby's blanket and wrapped her in them while Keiko went to get some other things like her formula and stuff like that. They all dashed out the door and headed for Hiyashi's office. Once there, Haruko barged into the room, ignoring the guard at the door, as he wouldn't have acted anyway. Something is wrong with Hanabi, she shouted, but not a whole scream. Hiyashi was in his office with Hazashi finishing up the training program for Naruto and Hinata when his senses picked up on the fact that somebody was running towards his office. He and his brother braced themselves for anything since running in the compound was unusual at night. The doors slammed open with Haruko panting and holding Hanabi, saying something was wrong with her. The man jumped from his position at the table and dashed to his wife's side. What's wrong? Asked the worried father. I don't know, but Naruto discovered that she has stomach pains, she said, and that was all that Hiyashi needed to understand that the situation may be dire. Haruko, I'll take Hanabi to the doctor, you take Naruto and come to the hospital, he said, taking the baby from the woman's arms. But she wanted to protest, but Hiyashi stopped her. Haruko, I can get there faster if I go by myself, and you know about condition. Trust me and let me take care of this, he answered. Ni-sama, I'll come with you, said Hazashi in a running pose a few feet behind his brother. Hiyashi nodded and they both disappeared, taking to the roofs. Haruko got Naruto and Hinata, since she didn't want to be left out, and exited the compound in a hurry. They got to the hospital in record time and went to the clerk. Naruto was still holding the woman's left hand, looking fine and flaring his chakra every 10 minutes or so, while Hinata was holding her mother's right hand and was panting heavily. Haruko wasn't looking all that fine herself since her illness meant a lack of exercise. The woman behind the desk looked like an angel in white until she saw the blonde and sneered at him. Haruko noticed this but left it for now. Hello, my husband Hiyashi Hyuga came earlier with my daughter Hanabi. Please tell me where to find them, she said in a panic. They are with Dr. Mamoru, room 325 to the left. They got here 10 minutes ago, she answered the woman, but then looked down to Naruto. But if you go to see them, please have that wait outside. She sneered again, pointing to the boy, making him look sad. A split second later, the clerk found herself pinned to the wall behind her desk with Haruko's right hand grabbing her hospital coat and her left palm stretched in a knife-like fashion to her throat. The Hyuga mother had her Byakugan active and was giving a menacing rage-filled glare to the hospital worker. Do not call him that ever again in my presence, or any other for that matter. She growled at the clerk but felt a calming wave as Naruto pumped a great deal of Ranpu chakra into her by grabbing her ankle. She then looked at the boy who shook his head from side to side and was trying to pull Haruko away from the woman. Haruko then calmed down, released her Byakugan and lowered her hand from the woman's throat but still kept the other on her clothes. You're lucky Naruto is kind enough to forgive you, because I wouldn't have. And for the record, if he hadn't stopped me, your job would have been the least of your concerns. Haruko growled once more and released the woman and, taking the two children's hands and going off to find room 325. They found it pretty quickly and entered it, finding Hiyashi standing on a chair holding his sleeping baby girl, and next to him was a doctor that looked pretty young and with brown hair that was fixed to the back of his head by a clamp and square glasses that sat on his nose. Picture Aizen from Bleach with the clamp. Hello. You must be Hanabi-chan's mother, Haruko-san. I am Dr. Mamoru. The doctor said while smiling. The woman nodded and bowed to the man and then asked, Sensei, doctor, teacher, how is Hanabi? Is she alright? Mamoru smiled even more. Yes, she is fine. She had a bowel obstruction in her small intestine that caused her pain. It wasn't serious yet, so we treated her with some light syrup medication that cleared her system. It is a common condition for kids this age, but I'm surprised you found out this so early on and didn't let it advance to a more complicated situation. Most parents can't tell the signs and bring their children in when the problems multiply, and if left untreated it can rupture the intestine and can lead to death. I guess having the Byakugan can help see things like this, he said, shaking his head and holding his hands in a I don't really know fashion. Haruko let out a long breath of relief. Actually, we don't use our Byakugan at home except during the day for training or for special circumstances, privacy issues. All the credit for the discovery goes to Naruto-kun here, she said, and leaving the boy a little confused. So Hanabi-chan is alright. He looked at the doctor. The sensei smiled and nodded while congratulating him for being a smart boy, making Naruto pump his fist and say, yada. Alright, but making sure not to scream seeing that Hanabi was asleep. He didn't know what a family felt like until now, but he did watch a lot of families with their kids in the park when he was homeless and knew that you should not yell near a sleeping baby. But then Hanabi sneakily opened one eye and smiled at her father, who noticed this. Naruto, the man called. The blonde came closer until he was less than a foot away. Hiyashi slowly handed the girl to him while saying, that's it, gently and with both arms. You're a natural boy, he said, looking at Naruto holding the baby. Hanabi then opened both milky white pupil-less eyes wide and then she squinted them. Then she closed them and started gurgling a baby's giggle, surprising the boy and making his face shine bright with kindness. Then both Hinata and Haruko came closer and they shared a good family moment. The next day Hiyashi called for a family council. Since they got home pretty late, he decided to let the children sleep in a little bit, so when he did so, calling for the council, it was already noon. The said council got assembled rather quickly, seeing that most of its members were retired elders that lived in the compound. Hiyashi-sama, why have you summoned us? One council member asked. I have called you to announce the fact that I am taking Naruto Uzumaki as my student along Hinata. I will also be allowing him to stay in a guest room of the main house with Yukihime as his attendant per her request. The news was like throwing a grenade in an oil tanker. It was all the council needed to start uproar. Hiyashi-sama, you can't be serious, yelled an older man. He cannot be allowed to stay here, barked another one. This is an outrage, Hiyashi-sama, shouted some of them in unison. They all had something to say and were voicing their reactions between themselves until they felt a monstrous killer intent directed at them from Hiyashi, who had his Byakugan activated. Are you finished? Said the Hyuga head, still keeping an emotionless face and tone. Aoi, you of all people, I was not expecting to oppose me so much. He looked at an elderly Hyuga. But Hiyashi-sama, that monster will ruin the clan's image. He expressed his opinion. Hiyashi now frowned and retorted, Aoi, do you know what the doctors told me 2 months ago about your daughter Haruko? This made the elder back up a little. They told me that she had at most 6 months to live. Hiyashi now closed his eyes, but his dujutsu remained active. Last night Hanabi had a problem, and so, my wife and I took her to the hospital. After Hanabi was given the all clear, we also went to check on Haruko's health. Do you know what happened? The doctors nearly fainted, claiming it was a miracle. Her body was slowly recovering, and they said that if this keeps up, she will be fully recovered in 2 years and have a normal, healthy body. And you know what? The doctors were right, it was a miracle. That miracle's name is Uzumaki Naruto. As you know, he has the ability to use 8 trigrams 128 palms, and that alone is a miracle, but this ability also has the power to cure your daughter, which it's slowly doing. Hiyashi turned to the council, leaving the old man to pick his jaw from the ground. Need I remind you that he saved Hazashi, my brother and leader of the branch family council, that he rescued Hinata, my daughter and your future leader, from a life as a breeding thing? Hiyashi now showed anger and disgust, saving our clan's honor and dujutsu at the same time. Need I remind you that? He shouted at the men who were left speechless and looking away. For all of this, he should be an honorary member of the clan, but he's not asking for that. He's not asking for anything. Our clan members are seen as heartless monsters to the villagers of Konoha, and looking at you right now makes me think that they were right. This made most of the councilors cringe. Are you willing to throw a child on the streets? To have him fend for himself? He asked. But Hiyashi-sama, what if the seal breaks and he merges with the you-know-what? One last worried man said. And you wish to hasten it? Besides, if it does, I'm sure the boy can control the beast. These words made the council raise an eyebrow at Hiyashi, and if I'm wrong, who do you think that he will come for first? If anger is what drives the beast, then, do you want to cause him more pain? The men and women of the council looked pale. Most of them were already convinced of the boy's good intentions and worth before they even began talking about Kurama, but now they were petrified of the outcome of the worst situation. I want to give him support, to help him fight off the beast if needed. This was not even up to debate. I entertained your childish antics and came out very disgusted and disappointed. I will tell you again, Uzumaki Naruto will be my student and guest. Do you understand? And received honest nods from them. Good. Then this meeting is adjourned. And with that he left.